Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'll make a new video regarding Postgres extensions I think you absolutely need without a doubt. So those are 5 Postgres extensions that don't come prepackaged with Supabase, so they're not already activated. When you create your new instance of Supabase, you need to activate them manually. It's super simple and it's going to allow you to do multiple different things in your specific project. Depending on your use case, it's going to be mostly use case as agnostic. So let's jump right into it. So the first one I'd love to talk about is pgstat statements. So what pgstat statement does is it basically allows you to get stats that you wouldn't get if you're only using Postgres. It basically calculates a lot of metric that you wouldn't get if you didn't have it activated. So the way you'd basically use pgstat statements is, I'm going to show you right now how you would use it. It will basically explain to you what query is slow, how long did it take to run, and stuff like that. And this will be the first step for you to decide, do you need indexes, partitions, all that optimization stuff. By the way, if you don't want to do that job yourself, you can go in the description. I have a free analysis page where you can just send me your email, and after that we'll get into contact, review your architecture for free, and I'll present it on the channel if you want. So that's something you can do. But if we want to see right now what it does, so I have here a real production application for my client, and I'm hiding every personal detail. But we're going to go in the SQL editor, and this is one of the queries I've ran for him. So let's run this right here, which is a query to basically look at what are the most expensive calls and queries for a specific application. So if we run this, what we will get is we'll basically get, first off, all that data is anonymized, so there's no real variables in it. You can see that we have, let's say, 5 calls with a mean execution time of 2,100 milliseconds, so about 2 seconds. But we could get a whole bunch of things, right? So if we basically select star from this and get only 10, we'll see we'll have a lot of stuff, right? So the user ID, so you could basically track which user is making very expensive queries if you had a system like that. You could also see, what DB is it querying. So if you have a multi-DB setup, then maybe you want to track the load on a specific DB. You can see the actual query. You'll also see things like the total execution time. So this is going to be basically the sum of all the calls made, and basically they're summed to return which took the most time. So a standard thing that I would do for looking at a client setup is I would do basically sorting descending, and instead of mean exact time, I'll do total exact time, because this takes into account the number of calls also, so it's going to give you a more accurate reading. So if we look here, we will be able to see that there's a specific query that is taking the most execution time all around. So that would be the first one you'd want to start optimizing, because this is the one that takes the most CPU time, the most memory. So this is for pgstat statement. I won't go into all the things you can do, because there's a lot of columns, as you can see, but it's really a good first extension to basically have for your Supabase project. I'll show you also how to activate it. So if you go to database extensions, and if you search pgstat statements, so you see it's already activated, but you just toggle it here and it's going to install it. You just select the schema you want to install it in. I chose extensions, and it will work flawlessly. So let's go right next to the next one. So one thing you might be doing now is, from your front-end application, you might be calling a function to execute on your server side, I don't know, once a day, once an hour, stuff like that, right? So if you guys are not familiar with cron, cron is basically a way to set up jobs that are going to run cron logic. So the way you find pgcron is, if you go search for it, again, just right here, you'll see it's basically a job scheduler for PostgreSQL. So as the name says, it chronologically execute jobs at a specific time interval, whatever you choose, specific date if you want. Cron is very inextensible, syntax. So the way you would basically see your jobs ran or the ones you have scheduled in Supabase is you go to integrations, and then you can go to installed, and then cron, and then you go to jobs, and you'll see if you have jobs, they're going to be created, right? So you would go to create job, you would select what you want to do. So you could do database function, SQL snippet. The schedule is going to be here, so you can name your cron job. Another thing, you could call an edge function, right, which would need pgnet extension, which is also a pretty great one. But it's a very seamless setup that is going to allow you to run stuff chronologically very fast. So let's jump right into the next one. So the next one we're going to talk about is called pgvector. So pgvector is basically a way where you can transform your Postgres database into a vector database, right? A vector database is basically a database that is specialized in doing embedding similarity at scale, right? So basically, when you embed a text, or you embed, you can embed images, you can embed video, whatever, it's going to create a numerical representation of your data, right? So you could have basically, an image that the representation of it is an array of X number of numbers, right? So usually it's an array of floats, and you can have differentiating size in terms of arrays. So you could have an array of 128 numbers, or you could have 3,000, 4,000, however, depending on how you want to store it. And basically the pgvector extension is going to allow all those bindings to be done, right? Also going to bring in the the vector data type, the IVV flat, which is a new index type, and HNSNW, so I recall your small worlds. And this is going to allow you to query your data way faster, right? So one use case for that might be AI, right? So let's say you want to build a RAG system, and you want to basically have a knowledge base in your application, or you want to let users query specific data that is in your database via the front end. Then what you would do is you get first the user question, and then what you do is you actually embed it, and then you do semantical search with your embedding layer and the pgvector extension against your database, and then you return the closest semantical similarity content that it found in the database. So that's a very great extension if you're just looking to dive into LLMs, dive into context management for RAG systems. So it's a very great extension for that. So let's talk next about the other one, which we've addressed a little bit earlier. So this one is going to go end to end with the pgcron extension. So if you've noticed, when we went to pgcron and the jobs, and we did create job, it talked about the pgnet basically extension. And this one is going to be really interesting because it will allow us to do a whole bunch of things, right? So if we go to extensions and we search pgnet, so you can see it's not activated. It's basically an async HTTP server that is basically HTTP client, that is hosted directly in your database, right? So you can query stuff from inside your database, but also outside, right? So let's say I need to query a specific API for weather data information once a day, right? Instead of doing it at in a Python script or doing it in my application itself, what I could do is set up a pgcron that runs with pgnet and queries once a day a specific API, returns some data, logs it in my database, and then I can present it in the front end or do anything I want, right? So there's a lot of use cases for this. Another one could be, let's say you have your own self-hosted Olama server for generating embeddings, running Gen AI models, stuff like that, and you'd want to integrate basically some AI or some validation in your database. And what you could do is call your self-hosted endpoint from this pgnet extension, and basically don't have to use edge functions, right? Because in the past videos I told you that edge functions really have a cost associated to them after a specific scale. So it's a really great alternative if you want to use this instead. So let's get into the next extension. So the next extension we're going to talk about is a bit more of an advanced one. It's more about security, scalability, maintainability. So this one is going to be called pgaudit. So pgaudit is basically, like it says, an extension that allows auditing of basically your schema at scale, right? So it's going to allow to know who made specific queries, who accessed specific data, who wrote specific data. So this way you can track who has access, let's say, to a multi-tenant SaaS where you might want only specific users to have access to specific data and stuff like that, right? So it's going to allow you to basically see how well your data is segregated and segmented, and basically see, is your setup correctly made and secure, right? So this is only the top level side of what pgaudit does, but if you want to dive deeper, I really invite you to go dig into it and see what it does at scale. But basically, you just want to get more visibility on your actual system and who has access, right? I really recommend this one if you're an enterprise scale company that is looking for really segmentation, data security, data maintainability. So make sure you check out this one. So if we summarize what we learned today, so we have those 5. So we have, PG stat statement for performance. We have the PG cron for scheduling. We have the PG vector for the AI part. We have the PG net for integration, so external API, stuff like that. And we have the PG audit for security. Now, if you'd want to know what is good for your business in terms of, extensions and stuff like that, I really invite you to do the free architecture review that I offer in my description. And this will give you a better eye on your application, as I will give you a free report of, what you can improve and stuff like that. So without further ado, I wish you guys a very good day, and I'll see you guys in the next